This type, Rahul, business types of business organization. I felt we will talk that a little later because it talks only about sole proprietary, partnership, HUF, and society. It's been repeated a lot of times, so I thought let me cover something new apart from the organizations, types of organizations today. Sohan Dosh, industrial and various other laws, I will not be handling. Another faculty will be handling that. Okay. Gayatri, minimum 3 directors, maximum 15 directors. Only members can be appointed as directors in a Nidhi company. The maximum tenure is 10 years, after which there should be a cooling period of 2 years. After that, he can be reappointed. All this in case of a Nidhi company, this is how a director has to be appointed. Fine, let's start the session. So in today's class, we'll be seeing that after a company gets registered, we've been seeing how does a company get registered, what is the incorporation process and all these things we've seen. After a company gets registered, there are a certain type of requirements that a company has to do. Requirements here I refer to certain registration apart from the company gets registered, certain other registrations, certain licenses that a company is supposed to take in order to facilitate it to do its business activities. So when we see what type of registrations and licenses are required to do the business, it can be broadly classified into mandatory and non-mandatory registrations. So the first list of things, whatever you can see it on the screen, mandatory, the red one. So there are a couple of things which are in red color. So all these registrations, whatever we are going to see in our mandatory registrations. First, we'll cover what are mandatory registrations, and then we'll continue with non-mandatory registrations. So this particular chapter explains you that starting from the base, which is like starting from PAN card. Everyone knows that if we are going to do business, we require a PAN card. But where is this PAN card required? As soon as I register a company, I'm going to a bank to open a bank account. Why do I have to open a bank account? Because all transactions which are related to company, I cannot do with cash dealing. I have to do only through banking channel, which means that a company is supposed to have a bank account. So when I go to a bank to open a bank account as a company, the first thing they ask me is for a PAN card. So where is your PAN card? After that only he'll ask me for my registration certificate. So PAN card is a very basic document. So to get a PAN card is mandatory. Now after Spice and Spice Plus has come, getting PAN number and TAN number has become mandatory at the time of incorporation itself. Okay, so PAN number is basically an identification number, which is a non-repetitive number. If it is allotted to you, it is a unique number. It belongs only to you. It plays a vital role when it comes to paying tax and to track how much of income that a particular individual or person is going to get. So PAN number is a 10-character alphanumeric number. Okay, if you take your PAN card also and see, it will be alphanumeric. Okay, so in India, what all type of companies are, what all type of persons can apply for PAN? So is it only for an individual will have a PAN or a company will have a PAN? The answer is no. All these type of entities, all body corporates, which means that any entity which has a separate legal existence can apply for PAN. All companies, all LLPs, one-person companies, limited liability partnerships, sole proprietary. How can a sole proprietary get? For example, I am doing, I'm doing business in the name, in my name, Pavan Kumar. Sometimes instead of doing it in my name as Pavan Kumar, I would like to do it in some brand name. So I would like to keep like how Amul is doing or something, or like how Bata is doing. I would like to have a brand name. So in order to register that particular brand, I get myself into a MSME registration. Even sole proprietaries can apply for MSME registration. So my PAN card will come in that particular name. My bank account will be opened in that particular brand name. Some ABC Enterprises. Okay, so my PAN card will also come in ABC Enterprise. So that is what is sole proprietary, which is different from an individual. Okay, then comes the trust, corporations, uh, private limited companies, which is a private limited liability company, which means a private limited company, private firms, any other association, foreign institutional investors, and hedge funds. So everyone, whoever is going to do business in India, supposed to take a PAN card. And if I don't get a PAN card, then there is a tax implication. This is what is they are saying. In the absence of PAN, the government will charge a withholding tax rate of 30% on the total invoiced price. But if I have a PAN card, it will be reduced to only 10%. Okay, so I can actually save my taxes that I'm going to pay. The withholding, like the TDS that they deduct before they make any payment to you. If I have a PAN card, they deduct only 10%. If I don't have a PAN card, they will deduct 30%. So they are insisting, saying that you should take a PAN card. Okay. And whenever we have to apply for a PAN card, it can be applied through two different channels. One is through NSDL, second is through UTI. Both are online process. Now what has happened for companies is, companies, since from the date of incorporation itself, they are getting PAN card and TAN numbers. A company cannot apply for a PAN number separately now. They'll have to get it only at the time of incorporation. Any other type of entity, in the due course of their business, they can apply for a PAN card. So if they want to apply for a PAN card, they can apply through two channels. One is through UTI, one is through NSDL. You have to just go inside that particular website, and there will be a particular form which is called as Form 49 capital A. You have to just fill this 49 capital A, and you'll have to make a minimal payment what is being prescribed there, like 110 rupees. Once you make the payment, the PAN card will automatically get processed, and the PAN card will be issued to you. However, for companies, if you remember, after Finance Act 2018, they've stopped issuing laminated copies of PAN card for companies. They will be getting only e-PAN card. So at times your client would call you and they would ask you, sir, I have not yet received my PAN card. So we have to say, sir, as per 2018 Finance Act, issuance of laminated PAN cards have been stopped. So you will get only e-PAN card with a barcode. Okay. So whenever we are going to apply for a PAN card for a Indian resident, Indian citizen, in that case, the application form is Form 49 capital A. And whenever even foreign personnel can get, and a foreign citizen can get a PAN card in India. In that case, he has to make an application in Form 49 AA. Both are capital A's, 49 AA. So whenever he is a foreign national is going to make a application for PAN card, the charges will not be 110 rupees, rather it will be 1020 rupees. So this 1020 rupees was also taken extra for the reason that they'll have to courier the PAN card to him, to that particular person. So this is how you will apply for a PAN card. It's entirely an online process. You can do either through UTI or NSDL. And at the time of application for PAN card, you have to keep certain proofs, which is like your ID proof and your address proofs. Okay, it would differ from person to person. If you're applying for an individual, it can be your Aadhaar card or passport or bank account, your bank statement. When you're applying for a company, it is always that the ID proof and the address proof for a company is its incorporation certificate. So this is what is PAN card all about. Let me just I'll come to it. So whenever whenever I talk about TAN number, let's go in the order. What do you mean by a TAN number? Anyone? Do you know what a TAN number is? Tax assessment number. Tax account number, no, no. TAN number is tax deduction and collection number. Okay, so what do you mean by a TAN number? Tax deduction and collection number. Yeah, Vaishali, very good. Okay, so here what is this basically is, whenever an employer makes a, yeah, I'll come to it. Good. So TAN number is tax deduction and collection number, which is again a 10-digit alphanumerical number. So whenever an employer is going to pay some money to an employee, or a person who has availed services is paying to a service provider, he will normally, what he will do, beyond a point, he will deduct TDS and then he will pay you money. Okay, so on what authority is this employer deducting TDS from you? Because he's got a TAN number, which basically is a deduction and collection number, which the government is giving it to you. Since government can't be placed everywhere, what is government saying is, you take a TAN number, just like a GST number. You collect tax instead of me. Okay, you collect tax instead of me, and on periodical intervals, you keep filing the TDS returns, saying that how much tax you've deducted instead of me, and remit whatever you collected in the government's account. Okay, at the end of the year, what will happen is, the employee, after he makes all adjustments, makes few investments, if the employer has deducted tax in excess, he can claim for a refund and the department will refund it to the employee. Or what will happen is, if the employee is liable to pay more tax, then apart from whatever the employer has deducted, he will be paying more tax. So basically, TAN number is a basic number which is going to identify a particular employer or a tax deductor who is deducting the tax on behalf of the government. Okay, so this is what is called as a TAN number. So whenever we are going to make an application for the TAN number, again this particular application is also made through NSDL website. So you will have to again go to NSDL website. It is an online application form. Again, the form fees here is only 65 rupees, and you'll have to just fill an online form and you have to submit it. The form name is Form 49B. See here, it's written. So Form 49B is basically the which is for applying TAN number. So some friend in the chat box, they were asking if there is a, when I was explaining the previous point, when there is a PAN number, why do we have to take a, when there is a SIN number, why do we have to take a PAN number? So SIN number is basically your registration number, which is for your entity to identify you. PAN number is entirely a different concept, which enables you to have a track of income that is going to come to your company and the amount of tax liable that company has to pay. SIN number and PAN numbers are entirely a different number. Okay, so next comes the GST. So GST, you people know more about GST now. There's been a lot of changes which is coming, but then basically GST refers to goods and service taxes, where now they've said, if I'm dealing with goods, then if my turnover exceeds 40 lakh rupees, or if I'm in service sector, if my turnover exceeds 20 lakh rupees, in that case, GST registration becomes mandatory for me. There are other type of situations also where GST registrations will become compulsory. So what are the cases under which GST is compulsory even though the threshold limit is not exceeded? For example, for supplier who makes interstate supply, okay, irrespective of my turnover, I will be forced to get GST registration. If I do interstate supply, if I'm a casual taxpayer, if I'm a non-resident taxable person, if I am doing online trading, okay, and reverse charge mechanism. In all these cases, it is compulsory for, you would have studied all this in your tax class, when GST would be just an idea. In this subject, we'll be just saying, yes, GST is required to be taken. If I am going to deal in a particular state with a particular product, then for the entire state, one GST registration is sufficient. I need not keep taking for each and every branch. However, if I'm going to deal with multiple products in the same state, then I'll have to take GST registration for each type of product that I'm going to deal with. If I'm going to do business in different states, then for each state I will have to take a GST number, because SGST will be calculated based on that particular state. So in order to facilitate, whenever I'm going to do in multiple states, even though the same product, multiple registrations are required. So this is again a PAN based number. Based on your PAN only, your GST number will be issued to you. And there are certain type of people who are not liable for GST, where those four can be broadly classified as who are engaged exclusively in supply of goods or services which are not liable for tax, or which is exempt for tax. So you would have already studied what is the difference between exempted goods, taxable goods, and nil rated goods. Okay, so nil rated goods are basically rated at 0%. Exempted goods are basically are actually liable for tax, but through way of a notification it is not taxable. And non-taxable goods are basically which is not mentioned in the tariff schedule itself. So you would have seen what is the difference between taxable goods, exempted goods, and nil rated goods. It is basically a difference. If it is not at all there in the tariff schedule, it is a non-taxable good. It is there in the tariff schedule, there is a tax rate, but by way of a notification it is exempted goods. It is there in the tariff, but it is rated at 0%, which is called as a zero rated goods. So here what they are saying is all goods which are not liable for tax and all goods which are exempt for tax, GST is not, they are not liable to get registered under GST itself. And coming to the next one is any agriculture list and any other person as may be notified by the government. All these cases, a particular person is not supposed to take a GST. And when it comes to how to get it registered, you have to go to gst.gov.in website, where in the website you will have a column called as services. Under services, you will have something called as new registration. You will have to click on the new registration, enter your PAN number and few basic details. A TRN number will be generated. Okay, so this TRN number will be valid for the next 15 days, within which temporary reference number, temporary reference TRN number, which will be valid for the next 15 days, within which the GST registration process should get completed. There will be many columns in which you will have to fill your entity details, your director details, your registered office address details, the type of products that you're going to do. And in the end, in case you're going to apply for a company, you will have to sign it with a digital signature. And in case you're applying for a sole proprietary or any other entity, you can submit it by way of an OTP. And after scrutiny, there will be a first level of scrutiny, which will be a system level scrutiny. If the system approves it, an ARN number will be generated. And within the next 3 days, if nothing is found wrong, the registration certificate will be issued by the concerned authority. So this is how registration, GST registration is done. Okay. And they're saying GST registration can also be cancelled in certain cases if a proper officer may by himself or an application filed by a registered person or his legal heir in case of death of a registered person, cancellation or revoke of registration of such person. This cancellation would be prospective or retrospective date as the officer may deem fit. So he can cancel it from current date or from a past date also, saying that okay, from that date itself we'll consider you, which is called as a retrospective date. From the past date itself we are saying okay, fine. Okay, so and if he has got any input tax credit that he has availed, that has to be credited to the electronic ledger that is maintained by the ministry. So because you will not be carry forwarding it, so whatever you kept it as your credit, that money also you should, because you have to settle all the dues which you're having with the government, and the government will cancel, the concerned department will cancel your GST registration. So this is how your GST registration. So all registrations, whatever we've seen so far, your PAN, your TAN, your GST, and whatever we are going to see, whatever is in red color, whatever is red, until the red color gets completed, everything is a mandatory registration. Okay. Okay. Now going to the next one is your registration under Shops and Establishment Act. So when I talk about a registration under Shops and Establishment Act, most of them actually don't do this registration, but because they are not aware of it. But this is one of the mandatory registration, and we'll have to insist a person who's having a place of shops or establishments, if he's opening in that place, he is supposed to mandatorily have done this registration, because suddenly from the local municipality someone will visit their office and say, where is your shops and establishment registration? At that time that will be a problem. So this is one of the important regulation in which most businesses in India are subject to, is Shops and Establishment Act, enacted in every state in India. The act is designed to regulate the payment. So what does this act is normally designed for? It is used to regulate wages, hours of working, holidays, leaves, and terms and conditions of the working conditions that are there in the shops and in the commercial establishments. Okay, so it normally helps you to regulate how normally that work area should happen. Is been explained here. So when all type of shops and all types of establishments are supposed to get this shops and establishment registered under Shops and Establishment Act. So whenever I'm going to talk about shop and establishment, then we'll have to know what is a shop and what is a establishment. So that is what has been defined here. Shops are defined as a premises where goods are sold either by retail or wholesale, where services are rendered to customers, and includes an office, a storeroom, a godown, a warehouse, or workhouse or a workplace. Okay, so which includes everything. Even we are having an office space, so it includes an office, a showroom, wholesale, retail, wherever I'm rendering my services. Okay, so it can be even a saloon shop, shops and establishment, because I'm rendering my services to my customer here. Registration under Shops and Establishment Act becomes mandatory. And what is an establishment? So establishment is again defined under the Act, which includes a commercial establishment, residential hotels, restaurants, eating house, theaters, public amusement, and any other entertainment, like amusement parks, theme park. So all these things are establishment. Okay. And however, factories are not covered under Shops and Establishment Act because it is regulated under Factories Act. So that you cannot say a factory as an establishment because it is governed by some other act. So apart from that, everyone is supposed to take a license under Shops and Establishment Act. Okay, so this you will have to apply to the appropriate authority, who would normally be the inspector, or the commissioner, where he will normally take care even of the wages, labor wages, because in each state the office of the inspector position is designated to a person. So you will have to make who will normally called as a chief inspector. So on submission of an application and review by the chief inspector, shop and establishment will be registered, and the registration certificate must be predominantly displayed. So whenever you enter into the shop or office, it has to be displayed in a position where everyone can see, and it has to be renewed periodically. When we say renewed periodically, that means the certificate is valid for a period of 5 years. Okay. So any shop or establishment, the application for license in the prescribed form must contain the name of the employer, address of the establishment, name of the establishment, number of employees, and all other relevant details. Okay, it has to be given to the chief inspector, and he will, after the review, he will issue the certificate. So this is how you will have to get your shops and establishment registration. And suppose if from one shop to another shop, if you're changing, if you're any changes in your place, then you'll have to intimate it within 15 days, and a fresh registration certificate will be issued after you intimate it to them. Okay, so this is how you get it under Shops and Establishment Act. So next one comes the SSI or MSME registrations. Okay, small scale industry or MSME registration. So, even in your study material, MSME registrations again will be spoken something at the end of the class, in the end of the chapter. So it will be like two type of MSME registrations are mentioned. So don't get confused. MSME registration, whenever we talk about MSME registration, whenever you're writing an exam, just write it as Udyogadar registration. You'll have to go to Udyogadar official website, gov.in website, and there you'll have to do. And speaking about small scale industries, I will explain. Any doubts you can ask me so far. See, PAN number is basically used to uh, have a track of your income, wherever TAN number is basically used to have a track of the persons whom you're of the income to the persons whom you're paying. Okay, because we cannot, the government cannot keep, the department cannot keep asking everyone to keep paying taxes. So what they do, they deduct tax at source itself. If I don't deduct tax at source, whatever expense that I do will not be treated as expense in the books of my account. So I will have to deduct TDS if I have to show expense. So it becomes mandatory for all companies to deduct TDS and then make the payment, which will actually facilitate the government for easy collection of taxes. Even for sole proprietary, TAN number may not be mandatory, but PAN number and GST will become mandatory. Malina, the tax subject, I don't want to deviate from my particular subject. How does TDS work and all these things? Basically, you deduct TDS at source and you will pay, you will submit it to the government before the final person pays the tax, and he'll have to basically, after he files his return, whatever TDS is deducted gets adjusted with the tax liability that is payable, and in case of refund or excess, either he has to pay or the government will refund. I don't want to get too much into taxation, how it works, basic understanding about the questions, because I don't want to deviate from the subject. See, trade license and shops and establishment tax are entirely different things. Trade license, depending upon the trade license, is a general term which is given to industries where each type of industry, different type of trade license are required. It is industry specific. Shops and Establishment Act is entirely governed under, and trade licenses are also governed under particular that particular enactment. However, shops and establishment are regulated under Shops and Establishment Act, and this is just to say that we are functioning here. It is done at a state level. Yeah, that is what I said. It is basically done at a state level. Who's a casual taxable person? See, when I basically don't sell goods, okay, but then when I go to, when there are any exhibitions or any expos that are happening, I go, I display my products and I sell my goods there. So I am a casual taxable person in that case, because I don't sell products throughout every day, but only in specified events I display my products and sell. When I'm doing that, GST registration becomes mandatory for me. Aishwarya, shops and establishment license is registered in addition to companies being registered in Companies Act or LLP Act. Yes, apart from that enactment, shops and establishment registration is also required. So it doesn't mean that only because I've got registered under Companies Act I need not continue doing my, it doesn't anyway gives me a preference from not getting registered under Shops and Establishment Act. Vinod Kumar, now what has happened is most of the registration processes have become online. So you need not worry, even though people are in rural area, they can still make an online application. Even in villages, there are a lot of e-seva centers which are functioning now. So this particular person who wants to get this license, he can approach to the nearby e-seva person and he can ask for the registrations to be done on his behalf. Most of it can be done by ourselves itself. I'll explain Pragya Udyogada registration, and I'll explain you. It will come in the class itself in the end. Every license does. So someone is asking, does license need to be renewed after some time? Every license comes with an expiry time only, irrespective of under whatever act they get that license, because we cannot guarantee all the time we'll be maintaining our standards. So after due diligence, they will keep reissuing, renewing our licenses. GSTR1 is the form for GST registration. GSTR1. If I'm 1 second, because here the website we go, and then go to services, registration, new registration. And then you'll have to just type this number, and then your TRN number will get registered, and then goes to the next process. This is how you basically do your GST registrations. Okay, fine. So where were we? Here. So yeah, let's continue now. Any other doubts that? Okay. So coming to the next one is the MSME or SSA registrations, which is like small scale and auxiliary units should seek for registration with the director of industry. So where do we seek registration? To the director of industries of the concerned state government. All the class of enterprises, whether proprietary, HUF, AOP, societies, partnership firm, company, or undertaking by whatever name can be called, can apply and can be qualified under this particular act. Okay, so this is what they are talking about. SSI, which is like any person. It is done at a state level. SSI registrations also are done at state level only. It has to be applied to the director of industries, and any type of entity can apply for SSI units. Mostly SSI units are applied by manufacturing, small manufacturing sectors. And under this, they are talking about something called as GP, which is government purchase registration process, which is entirely different from an SSI registration. But I don't know, they've just given it as a subclass in your study material. Don't get confused by seeing that. GP registration is entirely government purchase. So if for example, I would like, what government does to these MSMEs and SSI units is basically, they give them certain privileges, certain in order to boost them from doing their business. Even recently, 20 lakh crores was allocated. Most of the benefits were given to MSME sector because the government has to boost them from doing the business. So what they do, they give them tax exemptions or reduction in tax rates. They give them discounts in paying their electricity bills. They give few capital assistance. They give soft loans where I say at a very low interest rate, and there will be a lot of government tenders. Even government, for example, they're laying roads, or they're building dams, or they're going to have a solar plant. It can be any project which the government is basically doing, and they will give it for tender for people to approach them. And these SSI units and MSME units will be given more preference when it comes to tenders. So when we talk about government purchase, it is such kind of thing. Okay. So micro, small and medium enterprises shall apply to shall have to apply either online at the website of NSIC. Okay. National Small Scale Industries Corporation. National Small Scale Industry Corporation. So in this website, they'll have to make an application, and after making that application, along with proof of their that stating that they are MSME and all these things, the MSME, the GP registration, the government purchase registration will be issued to these MSME, using which at the time of tenders, they get more preference, saying that they have this privilege of getting government contracts done from them. So this particular portion has been inserted suddenly inside, but don't get confused. It just talks about government purchases. Then comes is the ESI registration. So we've been hearing this ESI registration, PF registration, all these things. ESI registration and PF registration is also mandatory right now at the time of incorporation itself in Spice Plus. So what do you normally mean by ESI is, employee state insurance is the full form for it, but then the purpose of this is to create a level of social security to the employees who are working. This is again not applicable to all type of employees. It is applicable only to a certain type of employees whose salary is below 21,000 rupees, and in case of a disabled employee, 25,000 rupees. So below 25,000 rupees. So any employee who's getting a salary which is less than 21,000, or in case of a disabled 25,000, ESI will be applicable for them. This is a kind of a social security, which is basically like your insurance coverage. When you will have your star insurance, if suddenly you met with an accident or your health condition falls, in that case, you can use this particular ESI in order to protect you. Okay, so this is a basic idea about what an ESI is. So employee state insurance is a self-financing scheme for Indian workers, which covers health insurance and social security. Okay, ESI functions as an independent corporation and comes under the Ministry of Labor and Employment in India. So it falls under the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Okay, this act monitors the provisions of cash and medical benefits to employees and their family members. Okay, and they have a network with, and they have a connection with all the hospitals all over India. Okay, they have a good network. So any hospital you can approach, and even not only for the employees, it includes even their family members. Employees and their family members can avail medical treatment and attend, including but not only medical but also surgical and obstetric treatment as well. So all type of treatments are covered under ESI. Okay, so whenever I want to make a registration, there are two types of registration. One is called as the employer registration and one is the employee registration. So under ESI, there are two types of registration. Whenever an employer is done, any employer having 10 or more is mandatory. So when does ESI become mandatory? You have to remember this, 10 or more employees. Okay, whenever there are 10 or more employees in a company, in that case, it becomes mandatory to get your ESI registration within 15 days in Form 1. Okay, in Form 1. You have to make this application. And whenever an employee, at the time of joining, an employee requires to fulfill and make a declaration again in Form 1 along with copy of the family photo, along with the family Form 1 along with family photo, which the employer will be submitting, and the employee will have to give it to the employer, and the employer on behalf of the employee will be submitting it at the ESI branch. Within 3 months, a permanent photo ID proof, which is basically your card, your ESI registration card for the employee, will be issued by the concerned department. So employer registration is also done, employee registration is also done. So I've told you, so there's a wage limit. ESI registration is applicable to those employees who are earning less than 21,000 rupees per month. And in case of disabled, this is what I've said, 25%, 25,000. So what normally happens, I will be getting my salary. In my salary, there will be DA, that there's allowances and everything, basic and all. In that, they deduct ESI a certain percentage, they deduct PF certain percentage. So what is my CTC and what is my take home will differ, because there are all these deductions which are happening from my salary. So how much can be deducted for ESI is what is given here. In case of an employee contribution, it is 1.75%. And in case of an employer contribution, it is 4.75% of the total wages. Okay. So the employer will also make a contribution, the employee will also make a contribution from his salary, and that will be keeping on getting credited. It's like paying a premium for your insurance. This will be your premium amount that you are paying in order to avail the ESI benefit. Okay, 1.75 and 4.75 by the employer. So this is what is ESI registration is. Coming to the next one is provident fund. So provident fund is basically employees can be of many types. Certain employees will have a habit of savings during their earning time itself. They'll have certain amount of savings and they will keep it like that, so that at the time of their retirement or when there's a real need of that money, they will take that money and they'll use. Certain people, they will keep spending whatever they have. They will not have savings. In order to make a common saving platform for the employees at the time of their superannuation, when they get retired, in order to give them some benefit, a lump sum money, saying that you've been working for so long, so we, from your salary, we were cutting a certain portion of money and saving it here, and even for that money, interest also will be keeping on generating. Okay, and that at this time of superannuation, that lump sum money will be given. This is called as a provident fund. Okay. So here what is it saying is to provide financial stability and security to employees when they are temporary or no longer fit to work. The Parliament has enacted Employees Provident Fund Scheme 1952. Okay, an establishment. So when does this become mandatory? Like ESI has for 10 employees, for PF it is 20 employees. An establishment with less than 20 employees, with minimum 20 employees, it is mandatory to get it registered, and for less than 20 employees it becomes voluntary to get it registered. And how do you get your PF registration? So the application for performer or coverage has to be submitted in form 5 along with annexure 1. Okay, after that a temporary PF registration number will be allotted. After that, the PF authority will carry an inspection to the premises of the office, and after they do the inspection and find yes, there is an office space and there are more than 20 employees, in that case PF allotment letter will be granted. PF allotment letter will be granted. So this is how PF registrations become compulsory. Okay, so far we've seen what is a PAN, what is a TAN, GST, shops and establishment, ESI, PF, SSI, and government purchases. So we've seen so many things so far. Now going forward is FCRA registration. Okay, so even though there's a change in entity type from private to public, all your registrations can be carried forward. You have to just intimate to the concerned department saying that we are the same entity. So just make note even in your records. An intimation is sufficient. The registration, whatever you take, even though the type of entity you change, can be carried forwarded. So this SSI registration and MSME registration, someone is asking if any one can be taken or both are mandatory. According to whatever I've seen practically, even though you don't get this registrations, it doesn't impact in any way to the company. However, if you take this registration, it benefits the companies. Okay, and SSI registration basically covers at a state level, whereas MSME registration covers at a central level. Okay, both have its own importance in its own way. However, in your study material, it is given as a mandatory registration. So if you ask me, you have to take both the registrations. So it is not, if you take only one, it is sufficient. If you are a manufacturing sector, I would prefer you taking even a SSI registration. The salary, wages, and all these things will be as defined under Minimum Wages Act. And yeah, someone has said that the ESI contribution has been uh, revised now. Okay, so somewhere like here I was saying 1.75% and 4.75%. Even I saw in the news recently. I think this got changed to 1.5, 2 months, maybe now only. During the COVID time only, it got revised. Which is like 1.25% and 3.75% right now. So what is applicable to your exam? 1.25 and 3.75 is only applicable, because yesterday there was an announcement which came where all your exams got clubbed along with your December exams now. So when we see for December, 1.25 and 3.75 will only be applicable. I'm not just going inside too much of complexity, how to calculate and all these things. Because it will be like too much deviating away from the subject. So this is basically, see, what I would normally suggest is whenever these kind of slab rates are coming, if you are not very sure on what is the current percentage which is applicable, you can always mention the percentage which you remember, and in the brackets you can very well mention and which may be applicable uh, and as may be notified by the central government from time to time. Just mention it like this way for a safer side. Okay, so even though there is a revision, because few things we know there is a revision, few things we may not know there was a revision, and when you're studying, you can go to the website or you can just Google once and find out whether there's a revision in any rate. But suppose if we are not, because it is impossible for any human being to remember all the uh, percentages which are there. So you can just write in the bracket saying that as may be notified by central government from time to time. Okay. Coming to the next one is FCRA registration, Foreign Contribution Regulating Authorities. Okay. So whenever, what do I mean by this for FCRA licenses? Because whenever there is a not-for-profit organizations, which is like a Section 8 company or a trust or a society, which is a NGO, what these NGOs will do, the major source of their income will be from donations which are coming. It can be local donations, it can be foreign donations. And whenever there's a foreign donation which is coming to a company, which is coming to an NGO, FCRA registration becomes mandatory. FCRA registration has to be applied to the RBI. We have to make an application, and on their approval, you will be allotted this FCRA registration, and every year it becomes mandatory for every company, every NGO to file a return, FCRA return with the RBI, saying that we've got so much of foreign contribution. This is to have a track of donations which are coming into India, FCRA registration, and to identify to which source this money is, because most of the time there can be money which has been infused into India for illicit activities, terrorist activities, smuggling activity, or to affect the sovereignty and integrity of India, any purpose, the money might come into India. So we have to know from where the money is coming and for to whom the money is going and for what purpose is this being used for. So for which it is mandatory to file FCRA return every year. Okay. So charitable trust, society, Section 8 company that receives foreign contribution in foreign denominate from any foreign source have to get them registered under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010. Okay, so under FCRA Act, they have to get registered. A not-for-profit organization entity must have also been exclusively for a minimum period of 3 years. So immediately, as soon as I start a trust, can I get foreign fund? The answer is no. I have to have a cooling period of 3 years. I have to perform during that 3 years. In this 3 years, I have to at least have spent 10 lakh rupees for my main objectives, and I have to have proof saying that I have spent all these things. After that only I may get this registration. But however, there will be certain situations where during emergency situations, like for example now COVID is happening, so you have to provide food, you have to give shelter to few people, you have to take care of immigrant workers, so you have to facilitate them. So in order to in case of these pandemic situations, or in case of flood, in case of earthquakes, at that point of time few trusts and societies will be formed to benefit that particular. For that we can't wait for 3 years to get foreign fund. So in special cases, uh, if the government allows, they will give us FCRA registration even within one year from the date of incorporation. Okay, depending upon the scenario. So the application for FCRA registration can be made in form FC3. Along with the application, the following documents must be submitted: self-attested copy of the certificate of registration, a copy of bylaws and memorandum, activity report indicated for the last 3 years, and the last 3 year profit and loss account, not profit and loss account, income and expense statement. Because it's a non-profit organization, we normally don't call it as a profit and loss account. We'll call it only as an income and expense statement. So we'll call it an income and expense statement. So once FCRA registration is granted, it is valid for a period of 5 years. The application for renewal of FCRA can be made within 6 months prior to the date of expiry to keep the registration valid. Okay. So before 6 months, we'll have to approach to renew it. It will be valid for 5 years. Okay. So it's been 1 hour since we've been discussing. So we'll just take a quick break of say 2 to 3 minutes, and then again we will join. Okay. A small break, and then we'll continue again. We'll continue. Yep. Am I audible? Okay, great. So yeah, we'll just continue. So pollution. Okay, just like continuing pollution. Here, when we talk about pollution, earlier there were a lot of type of industries under which were treated as hazardous to the environment were required to take pollution control certifications. But in order to make it more simple, they've listed basically 30 type of industries which are now mandatory to get these the pollution clearance certificates before they start any operations in a particular locality. So enterprises are required to obtain statutory clearances relating to pollution, environment, and control and environment for setting up industrial projects for 30 different types of projects, which are basically called which are normally treated as more hazardous to the industries, to the environment. So what type of industries are covered in this 30 type of industries which are normally treated as more hazardous is industries relating to uh, petrochemical complexes, petroleum refineries, cement, thermal power plants, bulk drugs, fertilizers, dye, paper, similar things. Okay, so all these type of enterprises are normally treated as hazardous, and pollution clearance is required to be taken from for these type of industries. However, if the investment, they're again giving an exemption to it. If the investment is less than 100,000 million, such clearance is not necessarily unless it is pesticide, so bulk drugs, pharmaceutical, asbestos. You would have seen these asbestos sheets. Okay, the white thick ones. It will be asbestos sheets. Integrated paint complexes, mining projects, tourism projects in certain areas, and then the terrains of Himalayas. And all these things you'll have to get because they ensure those type of areas should not get polluted. Okay. So, however, these clearances are not required if have an investment size which is less than 1,000 million. Okay, less than 1,000 million, no need to get clearances. Beyond the uh, less than 1,000 million, I need not get these clearances. However, if I am dealing with any one of these products, that is why they are saying unless any one of these particular products, then even though I am less than 1,000 million, I have to still get registration. Okay. Further, any item reserved for small scale industries, what they are saying is there are certain set of industries which certain type of products which are specifically reserved for small scale industries. When a big player is going to come and do their activity which is particularly reserved for SSIs will get affected because big players will try to dominate the small players, and at one point of time the small buyers can get vanished also. So in order to protect the small industrialist, they're saying big players should not uh, deal with products that normally an SSI unit does. And if you're still doing, in that case, you'll have to get our approval. So further, any item reserved for SSI with investment less than 10 million is also exempt from obtaining environment clearance. So, however, if your investment size is less than 10 million, okay, in that case, you need not get. Apart from that, you have to get. Here, other normally 1,000 million. Here, in case of SSI, it is only 10 million because SSI units also can contribute only so much of income. So these whatever we've seen so far is a mandatory registration. If I'm going to start that particular unit, it becomes mandatory for me to get all these type of registrations before I start that particular activity. Then comes the next step of registrations, which are other registrations which may not be mandatory. However, if I am doing a particular activity, for that activity, that registration becomes compulsory. For example, starting with IE code, which is your import and export code, which is basically a 10-digit code. Again, this is also a PAN based code. This is given by the Director General of Foreign Trade. So you have to make an application, online application in DGFT website. Okay, along with an application fee of rupees 500 rupees. Okay, by making this application, your IE code will be issued, which will be a PAN based number. What is this IE code, import export code, which is basically tells a reference number. Whenever I'm importing something or whenever I'm exporting something, I have to identify with a particular number, which will be a unique number. Only I will have that number. So that for the purpose of that identification purpose, this IE codes are taken. So it will be applied in DGFT website. Coming to the next one is your drug license. So whenever we talk about drug license, whenever I'm going to have a medical shop, okay, a chemist shop, in that case there are certain requirements. I can have a medical shop or a pharmacy, the way it is called. I can do it as a retail or as a wholesale, and there are different licenses that are required when I'm doing it as a retailer or as a wholesaler. So let's see, when I need a drug license, when I want to open a medical shop, what type of registrations are required? To start a pharmacy business, a drug license is required. So Central Drugs Standard Control Organization and State Drug Standard Control Organization issue the drug license in India. So whenever I'm going to, in a very small level within the state, in that case, the State Drug Standard Control Organization will have the authority to give me the license. However, when I'm going to do it in pan-India basis, in that case, it will be Central Drug Standard Control Organization. Okay. So normally, Drug Control Organization issue two type of licenses. One is for retail drug license, and the second one is for the wholesale drug license. Okay. So retail drug license are these small medical shops which we see outside. Okay, and wholesale drug license will normally be the godown areas which will supply in bulk to these retail persons. In most of the states, retail drug license is only issued to persons who possess a degree or a diploma in pharmacy. Because why they are saying in most of the states, because retail drug license and all these things are regulated by the State Drug Standard Control Organization. That is why they are saying most of the states. This license is issued to person who possess a degree or a diploma in pharmacy from a recognized institute or university after depositing a requisition fee of amount. Okay, why they are saying you should have a degree to have a drug license, a retail drug license? Because we go to medical shop and we say, sir, I feel little feverish, or I'm not feeling well. He will, according to it, he will take a tablet and he'll give it to you. On what knowledge is he taking a tablet and giving it to you, and you're also having that tablet? Because the person who is employed there should possess, okay, should possess, only then they will get the license. A diploma in pharmacy from a recognized institution or a university after depositing a requisite fee, of a fact that the specialized job and only qualified people can handle it. This is the purpose. However, for procuring a wholesale license, the above condition is relaxed, because whatever the retail guy is asking, the wholesale people will give it to him. So wholesale people is not going to sell it to the final customer. So I don't know, but I believe the medical chemist and I buy it from him. So the chemist should know. Since the chemist already know, even though the wholesaler knows or not, he can just possess it. That is why this particular condition is relaxed for a wholesaler. But for a retailer, he should have some expertise knowledge. A requirement for drug license. The following are the minimum requirements for obtaining a drug license to start a pharmacy in India. So how big a medical shop should be, what kind of facility should be there in the medical shop, whether any refrigerating facility should be there, everything is explained here. Okay. So starting with the area, minimum 10 square meter is required to start a medical shop. or a wholesale outlet. And in case pharmacy business combines retail and wholesale, in that case 15 square meter is required. Okay, when it's a combination of both, 15 square meter, only retail 10 square meter, at least that big that medical shop should be. Storage facility, the store must have a refrigerator, air conditioner. That is why next time you go to a medical shop, you will see an air conditioner there. Even though it is working or not working, you will see air conditioner in a medical shop, because it is a basic requirement to get the license. A refrigerator, air conditioner. According to the labeling specification, certain drugs like vaccines, for example, in your house, there might be someone who's putting insulin, which has to be kept in which has to be refrigerated. Only in cold storage we have to keep. Okay, so certain specific drugs like vaccines, syringe, insulin injection, etc., are required to be stored in refrigerator. And coming to technical stuff. Technical stuff, when it comes to wholesale, the sale of drug by a wholesale shall be made either in the presence of a registered pharmacist or in the presence of a competent person who shall be a graduate with 1 year of experience in dealing with the drugs, or a SSLC pass with 4 years of experience. Graduate with 1 year of experience, or SSLC with 4 years of experience, or with a registered chemist, a registered pharmacist. Any one person should be there when he is disposing that, whenever he is supplying that particular drugs. And when it comes to a retailer, the sale of drug by retailers must be made in the presence of a registered pharmacist approved by the department. Registered pharmacist is required to be throughout the working hours, which means that he cannot say his son, you take care of the shop for some time, and he cannot go and sleep. A registered pharmacist should always be there in all the time in the retail shop. So this is what when it comes to drug license. Coming to the next one is FSSAI license. So what do you mean by an FSSAI license? FSSAI license is again Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. So the abbreviation for it is basically Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. Whenever I'm going to deal with food products, whenever I'm going to deal with any type of food product, a packed product, apart from a retailer normally sells it, he need not have an FSSAI. But I'm having a bakery, I'm having a cake shop, I'm having a hotel, or I am manufacturing, some chocolate, the manufacturer of that chocolate, or the manufacturer of that Lace chips. Person who's making the food product should possess a FSSAI license, which is a 14-digit number, which is again an online process. FSSAI license again is of two types, which is at the state level and the central level, based on the amount, the volume of transactions that I'm doing, whether I'm going to do it only within, for example, I'm going to have my particular hotel only in, say, Delhi, then I would get the local authority approval alone. I don't go to the central government to get the approval. But then I'm going to have it all over India. In that case, I'll get a central FSSAI license. Okay. The fee and the procedure to obtain the FSSAI license is more extensive when compared to an SSAI registration. SSAI license application should be made in Form B to the appropriate licensing authority, along with the necessary attestation declarations and all these things. Okay, basically this is valid for a period of 1 to 5 years, and if you, a higher fee would be applicable if you want it for more years. Okay, and you have to renew it not later than 30 days prior to the expiry date. Okay, this is what is about FSSAI licenses. So normally food related products, this is required to be taken. Food manufacturers and all these people have to take this particular license. Next comes is the trademark registration. Trademark registration, copyright, patent, and all these things you would have seen. These are all intellectual properties. Trademark is basically for a particular name on which you do a particular trade. It can be a logo, it can be a name, it can be a combination of a color, it can be indicating to a particular geographical area. Basically, to represent this particular product is mine, is a trademark. For example, let's take something called as, here there's something called as an Alphenliebe, where you will be having in this particular place there's something called as R. Okay, so then whenever that brand name belongs to me. That is why the R is there. In certain places, you will see as TM. What do you mean by TM? You have made the application, but the registration is not yet approved. Which in that case, you will have it as TM. Once the application gets approved, it becomes R. What is the time period normally it takes for a particular brand name to change from TM to R? In current date, it is 6 to 7 months. Your trademark registration gets completed. This is also entirely an online process. You have to get into your intellectual property website, government website. Under comprehensive e-filing, you will have to make this application in form TM capital A. For again, there will be 45 classes under which you will have to select which your product under which class it will fall. Class normally represents the industries that are handled in that particular class. So you will have to select the particular class in which you fall, and you'll have to make an application. If you are a sole proprietary, if you're a partnership firm, or if you're an MSME, the application cost is 4,500 rupees, and if you're a company, the application fees is 9,000 rupees. Okay, so this is how you make a trademark application. Coming to the next, this is basically done for your name, your trademark, the brand name that you're going to do. Okay, coming to the next type of registration is the cop. This is again not mandatory. However, if you don't want anyone else to use your brand name, because today I feel that trademark is not required for me. After my business grows, there are a lot of people who may use my name and they do business. At that point of time, I can't stop them if I don't have a trademark registration. If I have a trademark registration, I can file a case against him saying that he's using my registered trademark. Coming to the next one is copyright. Copyright is again has been enacted many times in India. So since last 5 times, there's been a lot of amendments in 1983, 1984, 1999, 94, 99, 2012. There's been a lot of amendments as then it comes to copyrights. Why is this happening? Because just to make our Indian Copyright Act 1957 in line with the WIPO treaty. So WIPO normally represents to World Intellectual Property Organization. So there will be a lot of countries which are party to this WIPO treaty, and in order to make our copyright in standard with the World Intellectual Property standards, a lot of amendments were taking place. So what type of things can take copyright registration is basically whenever it is some artistic or creativity related work, we take copyright registration. That is why you take a CD and see behind the CD, it will be copyrighted. You go to a website, on the footer you see it will be copyrighted, because these are all creations, artistic works. So for all these, a movie, if you want to, a movie script someone has written, in many times you would have seen that some director is saying the other director has told my story. That story was actually my story. A lot of people file some case for which copyright is normally required to be taken. So copyright is normally required to be taken for music, books, manuscripts, films, fashion design, training materials, softwares, even for softwares, literary work, performance, paintings, and all these things. Copyright registration is required. Again, copyright registration is also an online process. Okay, the application should be given in format 4, okay, Roman letter 4, which has to be sent to the registrar along with the requisite fee. Okay, a separate application has to be made for separate works. So you can't make a combine. Similarly, even for trademark, it is that way only. For different classes, different applications. So separate work. Even copyright, separate you have to give, and you will have to make the application. Either the applicant can make the application, or he can authorize an advocate to act on him. In which case, you have to the applicant has to give a power of attorney to the advocate. The registration will be issued. The registrar will issue a diary number, and it is mandatory waiting period. There's a mandatory waiting period of 30 days. During this 30 days, what he'll do, he'll put it in the public gazette, and then he'll wait for objections. So this 30 days, he will see whether anyone is objecting. If there are no objections received during the 30 days, the scrutinizer will check the application if there are any discrepancies, and if there is no discrepancies, the registration will be done, and the extract of the same will be sent for the entity that is seeking for registration. Okay, so this is how you normally make the copyright. And if there is an objection, then the registrar will inform the applicant saying that someone has objected or what you would say for it. And there will be representations which are made by both the sides, and after that the final registration process will happen. Even in trademark, there will be a mandatory waiting period of 3 months in case of trademark, and if there's no objection, only then the process. That is why I said it will take 6 to 7 months for it to get completed. Coming to the next intellectual property is your patent. Patent is normally given for any new inventions that are done. Suppose I found a engine which is going to be run with water. Okay, instead of petrol, I'm going to use water to run a vehicle. So that particular engine, I will take a patent and I'll keep. Okay, I will find out a machine where flights can land and take off in a very small runway. Okay, I made a new mechanism for that. So for which I will take a patent and I'll keep. Okay, there can be different items. For example, I have the laptop from which we are talking. Some changes I've made to this laptop where the battery can stand for 1 week without charge. Okay, the mechanism what I've used, I take a patent and keep. Or I'm having a mechanism to change seawater into drinking water. Even though there are a lot of things, I do it in a more good way with more filters in it, for which I take a patent. So new inventions, basically, I take patents and keep. Okay. So patent is an exclusive right grant for a government for inventors for an invention which is new and innovative solution to an existing technological problem. Or if there's an existing problem, I find a solution to that problem. So it can be a new invention, or to the existing problem, I find a new invention. The patent rights are granted for a limited period of time in exchange for complete public disclosure. So at the beginning time, I can say, for example, I've taken, for example, now last week we saw Russia has found a vaccine and they started to test it on humans, for which they can take a patent and keep. Okay, and they can have that patent for say like 10 years. After the 10 years, they cannot have that patent. It has to be disclosed to the public, because after a point, it has, for the good well-being of the public, it has become mandated by law, saying that you cannot have the patent secrets all the time only with you, because you will have to share it at a point. During this 10 years, you earn how much ever you want. So every patent will have a time period after which it has to be disclosed to the public. And whenever it is a startup company, where we've seen what a startup company is, these type of companies which have innovative ideas, which with innovative ideas, no one, same like patent or a new invention, whatever use of technology that they've done in the existing problem. So these are called as startup companies, where using innovation and technology, they've introduced this kind of a product for the first time. So if they want patent, they are given, in order to promote them, 80% of the rebate of the patent fee is given as rebate to them. So normally to get a patent registered, it would, a person has to spend nearly a 1 lakh rupee. So where at least the patent fee will be given back to him, 80% of the patent fee. So how do you apply for a patent registration? Application for grant of patent has to be made in Form 1 in duplicate. Provisional and complete specifications. What is the specifications of that and all these things? That is why whenever a patent is being applied, the technical person support is required to be taken in order to design the application form, because we have to give us complete provisional or a complete specification in Form 2, along with the diagrams, descriptions, and any other cuttings. Then statements of undertaking in Form 3, saying that this is my original work only, statement of undertaking. Then power of attorney, in case I'm appointing an attorney to represent on behalf of me, power of attorney, declaration of the inventorship, and Form 5. All these things has to be given. And in case of a small entity, Form 28, because there will be a rebate. There'll be some concession in the fees, small, if I'm a small entity. Okay, so all these copies I will normally give, and after the registrar sees, he will give the patent registration to me. The next type of intellectual property that we are going to talk about is design.
When we talk about design, uh, let's take Coca-Cola bottle. The bottle has a particular design to it, and there are few chocolates which now like egg it looks. So these are all specified designs which are made, and they say no other competitor company should use this particular design. There's some Samsung TV which has come, the curved TV. So they will take a design registration and keep, and they'll say our design no one should use, only we should use. Or there's a new model car which is coming, for that design they take a registration, or a similar copy of that car model can be copied by another automobile company. In all these cases, design registrations will be taken. The objective of the design rules 2001 is to enable protection to a newly created design applying to a particular article manufactured by an industrial process. Okay. So generally, even we see here, so this can be a 2-dimension based or a 3-dimension based. You will have to give your specifications and all these things they have been talking here. And this is generally given grant for a period of 10 to 25 years. This is often divided into terms and conditions with subject to renewals. So this design registration is basically for a period of 10 to 25 years. So design registrations. These are all non-mandatory. However, if I take that and keep, I can protect my company from an outsider. So this is what is being told here. So going to the next one is requirements for NBFC license with RBI. Okay, I would just like to pause say for 1-2 minutes, and then we'll continue. Continuously, if I keep talking, so much again, so much is still left for this chapter to get completed. This is the biggest chapter in your study material. So if we complete this, a major chunk of it would get completed. I'll just we'll just for 1-2 minutes, I'll just see some questions or something, and then I'll again continue because I can't continuously keep talking. See, it can be Pepsi formula is not out or KFC formula is not out. Those are all food related. Okay, that is different. That is not good for any public. Medicines are good for public. That I can't hide it for a long time and keep. NSIC is National Small Industry Corporation. National Small Industry Corporation is the full form for NSIC. Just go inside that website and start Googling it and try to understand. Just go see inside once, you'll understand it. iPhone designs, very good. Fine, we'll continue. NBFC companies, non-banking financial companies. So basically, what do banks do? Banks operate in a very large scale, and they accept deposits, they give loans, and they have a lot of banking products also which they facilitate. They give negotiable instruments. They can facilitate banking and settlement system. Okay, there are a lot of things what normally a bank does, but there are certain places where everyone cannot get a banking license, because getting a banking license is very difficult, and to maintain and to be in compliance with the specifications, the banking regulations, is also again very difficult. So in order to facilitate still some financial activity which is happening in the country, small licenses are given to organizations. Like yesterday we saw a Nidhi company. Few licenses are given even for non-banking financial companies. So these non-banking financial companies are basically a little difference, as a small difference between a banking company. After this particular chapter, I will be going to the financial institution chapter, in which about NBFCs I'll tell you in detail. Okay. So, however, a small introduction about NBFC companies is NBFCs lend and take deposits similar to banks. However, there are few differences. NBFCs cannot accept demand deposits, which means that they cannot, if someone is giving a DD, NBFCs cannot accept demand deposits. NBFCs cannot issue checks drawn on its own name. So NBFC companies cannot issue checkbooks. NBFC depositors are not covered by the Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation. Here, what is it saying is, whatever deposits we are having in a bank, normally there is a deposit insurance and credit guarantee scheme, which is where the deposits are insured up to an amount of 1 lakh. Okay, which by default, irrespective of how much ever deposits I have, the value of up to 1 lakh value of my deposits, there's an insurance which is given as mandated by the government. Okay. However, for the deposits which are there in an NBFC, this insurance is not applicable. This insurance is not applicable. And banks can facilitate payment and settlement system. What do I mean by payment and settlement system? Whenever I'm buying something in Amazon or something, after making the payment, I go to the payment gateway and I make payment using my bank account. That even though I have an account in an NBFC company cannot help me to do that payment and settlement system. NBFC company cannot issue a debit card. NBFC company cannot issue a credit card. So these are small differences. And if I want to get registered as an NBFC, I have to get first registered under the Companies Act, and I have to satisfy that the eligibility test of 50/50 is been satisfied. When I talk about eligibility test of 50/50, again, I will explain you in the financial. There's an eligibility criteria. I will explain you when it comes to NBFC chapter, the financial institution chapter. Basic understanding is I have to get registered as a company under the Companies Act, and I should have a minimum paid up capital of 2 crore rupees. Okay, and I can either be a private limited company or a public limited company. In case I'm a private limited company, I'm not allowed to accept deposits. If I'm a public limited company, I can accept deposits. So this is what these basic conditions, if I'm going to satisfy, I can apply to RBI for an NBFC license. It's again an online process. Okay. Coming to a banking company. So whenever we talk about banking company, licenses of banking company is governed by the Banking Regulation Act 1949 under section 22. Every company which proposes to be a banking business should get license from RBI. So RBI only does this. Okay. And a banking company that were into existence before the commencement of this act, they should get this license under this particular act within 6 months from the day of the commencement of this act. Okay, RBI will grant this license only after being satisfied the company proposed to do business without affecting the depositor's interest. So what main thing that RBI normally sees is a lot of people will start depositing into the company. Will this bank function in a way which will not affect the depositor's interest? Only in that case they will give the license, or they will not give the banking license. Okay, and if any time if the RBI feels that the particular banking company is acting in a way which is detrimental to the interest of the deposit holders, they have all the powers to cancel the banking license also. So this is so whenever I want to start an NBFC company, I get NBFC license. Whenever I want to start a banking company, I get a banking license. Both I have to apply to RBI only. Both are online process. Then comes IRDA, which whenever I want to start an insurance based company, I apply for IRDA registration, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority. Okay, where this authority grants licenses and issue registrations for insurance business in India. The procedure for grant of license and registration is listed in the following below formalities. Okay, granting license to companies to start insurance business, approval of financial products, appointment of different insurance intermediaries, investing the insurance premium, accounting and audit, miscellaneous other miscellaneous important provisions under Insurance Act. What they are saying is, first I give you the whenever I go to an insurance company, the insurance company will say we have 2-3 products with us. So this normally covers 5 lakhs coverage, 10 lakhs coverage. This your family members, everyone will get covered. In this only your spouse will get covered. In this your children and spouse, everyone will get covered. So they'll have different products and there'll be different premium ranges. For this you have to pay so much premium. For this you have to pay so much. They'll design different products. So what does this IRDA do? First, they will approve the license. Second, they will approve the product and approve different appointment of different insurance intermediaries. Okay, so there will be a lot of people who would support in selling these products and help these companies to do business. So appointing those type of intermediaries and investigating the insurance premium. It is basically investing. It is not investing the insurance premium, because if I am fixing 10,000 rupees as insurance premium, IRDA will come and check on what basis are you saying 10,000 justify to me. So investigating on the insurance premium, accounting and auditing to check whether they are doing properly. All these things IRDA will have a eye on the insurance company. So IRDA will monitor the entire insurance company. Okay, no person can carry on a business activity unless and until he has obtained a certificate from the authority for this particular purpose. And if that particular purpose has obtained license for life insurance, then he can do only for life insurance. He cannot do for a marine insurance or a fire insurance. For what type of insurance he has taken, only that type of work this particular person is supposed to do. So how do I make an application to get this insurance license? Okay, it's going really big. Okay, procedure to apply for a insurance license. So every application should be in a prescribed form, which is IRDA R1. The registration shall be made with the following enclosures, which is the memorandum and the articles, the director details, all the directors details, what class of insurance, like earlier we saw no life insurance or marine insurance. So what type of insurance license they are looking for. Then a statement indicating the source that will contribute to the share capital. Because whenever you want to start a insurance company, you should have huge money with you. Like it's not small company. You should have like 100 crores, 200 crores. So from where are you going to bring the capital? Source of the capital. So all this information first should be disclosed in IRDA R1. And after the authority is satisfied, he may approve that application or reject the application. If he rejects the application, that's all, the process ends. If he's approving the application, the process will go to the next level, in which he has to submit something called as IRDA R2, which should be accompanied with the following documents. Okay, so first level of screening is IRDA R1. After that is approved, it goes to the second level of screening, which is IRDA R2. In IRDA R2, these are the following enclosures. Every insurance shall deposit in cash. So what I would normally suggest is read this from the study material. In case of any doubts, you can ping me on specified doubts. So here what they're saying is, based on each type of, if it is a life insurance or a general insurance or a reinsurance, there's a limitation how much money you have to actually supposed to have. That particular amount you have to deposit with the particular authority, because sometimes if you are going to face some loss, at least because you have deposited this money with the authority, you will be a little careful. So based on the type of company, if it is a life insurance, they are saying 10 crores. If you are a general insurance, they are saying again 10 crores. Or if you are a reinsurance company, they are saying 20 crores. Okay, so this is the deposit amount that is supposed to be given to the authority at the time of registration itself. They're saying 1% of the gross premium written, but not exceeding 10 crores. 3% of the gross premium that you get, but not exceeding 10 crores. So they're giving two conditions, that or this. That amount has to be deposited to the particular authority. After depositing that amount, a declaration in verification from an affidavit from the principal officer that the equity share capital of the company has been complied with. So minimum capital requirements are there. In case of life insurance, it is 100 crores, and in case of reinsurance, it is 200 crores. This is the minimum capital condition that I'm supposed to have if I'm going to have an insurance company. So I make the deposit, initial deposit. Second, security deposit. Second thing, I make a declaration saying that my capital criteria is satisfied, that, and the issuer will carry on the business is carrying on a business of insurance already then been within 6 months from the commencement of this act. This is for when the act came. Before that, if they are applying again for this license, like for banking companies, we saw, no, when banks are there after the Banking Regulation Act came, within 6 months. Certified copy of the published prospects and the policy standards that they're going to have. Statement of assuring the rate of assured rate, advantages, conditions. So whatever they normally going to give it to their customers, a copy of all those things, policy details, the advantages, the rate at which it is going to be charged, and saying that after we charge this particular rate also, we can do the business properly. It is a workable and a sound model only, that what we are doing. Okay. So along with all these registrations, you will make an application to IRDA, and he may accept or reject the application after analyzing the second level. Okay, the applicant on whose application has been rejected can file and if it gets rejected, he can make an appeal before the central government within 30 days from the date of the rejection letter that he has received. And there will be certain cases where the registration will be cancelled or suspended. Basically, whenever the terms and conditions, whatever you declared at the time of registration, if you don't follow to it, or if you collect more premium, or if someone has claimed you and you have not given the claim to them, in all these cases, they will normally suspend or cancel the registrations of the insurance company. And all companies that are related to these telecom related companies like Jio, Airtel, it can be even Tata Sky, these broadcasting or Videocon, Airtel. So all these companies are regulated by TRAI. All are telecom related companies, which is Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which was established in 1997. So suppose if I am any one of these type of companies which were telecom related companies, then registration under TRAI becomes mandatory. There's something also called as other service providers, where I'm going to deal with e-commerce, e-banking, or e-trading, e-education, e-medicine. Whenever I'm going to do anything online, okay, then I have to get this other service provider registration done from the Department of Telecommunication. Okay. So that is what they're saying here. And whenever I'm going to take other service provider registration, I'll have to submit these registrations, and this registration will be valid for 20 years. Like certificate of incorporation, MOA, OA copy, board resolution copy, list of directors, shareholding pattern, all these things I will normally give. Okay. And before the expiry of within 6 months before the expiry of my other service provider registration, which is like after 20 years, within 6 months at the end of the expiry, I'll have to reapply for a extension of my registration under other service providers. Then comes information and broadcasting. Information broadcasting basically talks about whenever we do something in radios, television, films, press, it can be print media, print publication, advertisements, journals. All these things are governed and regulated by the Ministry of Information and Broadcast. The Ministry of Information and Broadcast, on basis of these people, they will see what kind of content is being broadcasted, whether it is affecting any sentiments and all these things, that this particular ministry only takes. And whenever anyone is going to deal with this kind of activities, then a registration should be taken from the Ministry of Information and Broadcast. And this Ministry of Information and Broadcast also does certain other type of activities, like whatever the government would like to tell to the general public, through this ministry only they will say. So what all works does this ministry normally do? News services through All India Radio or Doordarshan. So All India Radio or Doordarshan is normally under the control of Ministry of Information and Broadcast. Development and broadcasting of television, import and export of films, the movies. If an Indian movie wants to be released in a foreign country, it has to go through this ministry only. When a foreign movie wants to get released, like recently a lot of foreign movies have been coming, if those movies have to be released in India, it has to come through this only. So import or export of movies, development and promotion of film industry, organizing film fest and film fair functions, the cultural events. So all these things are basically, can again just read this once. So all these things are basically under the control of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Then comes the industry license. Someone was asking me about industry license. So the governing act is the Industrial Development and Regulation Act 1952, popularly called as IDRA. Okay. So at present, most of the industries are exempt from having license. Instead, they are only required to file an industrial entrepreneur memorandum. Okay. At present, industrial license is required only for the following: industries retained under compulsory licensing, manufacturing an item reserved for small scale sector, when the proposed location attracts location restriction. So only in these three cases, industrial license becomes mandatory. Apart from this, industrial license is not mandatory for other type of companies. So we will see one by one now. When does, so basically industrial license, the governing act is this, and only these three in these three situations, industrial license is required to be taken, and we will see one by one what does this three things in detail say about. So starting from compulsory licensing. So compulsory licensing, there are 5 types of industries which are required to take compulsory licensing. What are those 5 type of industries? Distillating and brewing of alcoholic drinks, then cigarettes, cigars and tobacco, then electronic, aerospace and defense equipments, industrial explosives, gunpowder and all these things, and specific hazardous chemicals. So all these hazardous chemicals. So industries which are dealing with any one of these 5 type of industries require fall under compulsory licensing, and these are required to take industry license specifically. Others, just information memorandum saying that I am doing this activity, this is what we do. We just give an information memorandum. With that, it gets completed. But these people are required to take license. Then comes small scale sectors. We've said certain type of products are specifically reserved for SSI units. When these SSI units are when big industries come and they start doing those areas where it is reserved for SSI units, then compulsory licensing is, gets triggered. You will have to get trade licenses. Then comes location restriction. They say within a particular location, if you're doing business, then you have to get license, which is setting up an industry within 25 kilometers from a city which has a population of 10 lakhs requires industrial license. Okay. However, this has an exemption. So 25 kilometers radius, you should not have any industry that is happening where there are more than 10 lakh people staying. However, this have certain exemptions. So what is the exemption? If the unit is located specifically in industrial area, even if you're in cities, you would see there would be a specified area which is called as the industrial area. Even though it is within the city, you can find out manufacturing industries which are functioning there, because there's an exemption for those type of industries which are functioning in industrial areas. In that case, this kilometer criteria will not be applicable. Or in case where the industry is an electronic industry like computer software or painting or any other industry where it is a non-polluting industry. In this case also, that is why software companies, everything are within the city. In all these cases also, industry licenses is not required. These 3 type of things: compulsory licensing, persons who are handling products which is specifically reserved for small scale industries and who are not satisfying the location restriction, trade licenses becomes mandatory. For others, just disclosure of industrial entrepreneur memorandum, IEM, is sufficient. So what does this IEM normally refers to? All industries undertaking exempt from the requirements of industrial licensing, including existing units undertaking substantial expansion, are required to file. So even though I'm a new unit, or I am an existing unit going for an expansion, in all case I'll have to file something called as Industrial Entrepreneur Memorandum in Form IEM with the Secretariat of Industrial Assistance, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Government of India. So to which ministry I'm supposed to file? I am supposed to file it to the Secretariat of Industrial Assistance, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Government of India, and they will give an acknowledgement. That's all. After that, no approvals and all is required to be taken. You will just make an application and they will give an acknowledgement. So no separate license is required to be taken. So it excludes all industry having an investment size of more than 10 crores and service sectors having 5 crores, and all industry who deal with items that are specifically reserved for SSI. So this is basically an exemption which is given to the small scale industry. Even though I am, see here we said, here what did we say? Specifically which is reserved for a small scale industry, I am not supposed to do that activity. If I am doing, I have to get a trade license. However, if my investment size is less than 10 crores, or if I'm a service sector, if my investment size is less than 5 crores, in that case also I need not file a IEM. Okay. So the application to make an IEM is ₹1,000. So with this particular chapter comes to an end. Okay, different types of registrations and all these things. So it's been like 2 hours now. We'll just you can just post your questions in the chat box. After 2 minutes break, I will come. I will try to first answer your questions, and then we will continue with the next chapter. Okay. We'll start. Okay. 1 second. Okay. So the next chapter that we're going to see is formation and registration of NGOs. Uh, see, NGOs are basically organizations where they do something what normally the government is supposed to do. But practically, if you see, due to lack of manpower, the government will not be in a position to uh, do whatever all type of operations. They need help from even private partners to help in accomplishing their works. Government is always ready to give money for it, but they need some volunteers to come forward and to do certain activities for which NGOs are normally formed. Okay, that is why these are called as non-government organizations. How even though they are non-government organizations, they do activity which are for the good for the public at large. Okay, so societies in India, NGOs in India can be formed basically in three different forms. One is a Section 8 company, second is a trust, and the third is a society. Okay, each are by objective have the same objectives, but the regulations, the entity under which they are registered, the enactment under which they are registered differs for each type of entity. So let's start seeing each type of entity one by one, starting with the Section 8 company. So when we see what a Section 8 company is, Section 8 company is a company that is registered under the Companies Act, which has an objectives for promoting commerce, art, science, sports, education, research, welfare, religion, charity, protection of environment, and any other such activities. For these are the objectives for which basically these are formed for. Okay, and they can generate profits, but that profit should not be a distributable profit. It has to be again used only for the promotion of its objectives. Uh, a Section 8 company also has the characteristics of a private limited company. However, they are treated as a separate legal entity. That is why the usage of the words private limited is not mandatory behind their name. Instead, you will have wording such as foundation, confederation, council, uh, these kind of words as a suffix instead of private limited to Section 8 companies. When we talk about minimum capital criteria, there is no minimum capital conditions, just like a private limited company. You can start with any amount of capital that you would like to have. And whenever I'm going to register a private limited company, there will be a concessions on my registration cost also, where I suppose I'm supposed to pay 2000 rupees as stamp duty. I'll be asked to pay only 500 rupees as stamp duty. So there's a very concession when it comes to register at the time of registrations. There will be a lot of concessions when it comes to the registration cost and the stamp duties that I pay. Section 8 companies are also separate legal entities, which makes it different from the management that is managing them. They can, as a Section 8 company can act on its own. And any changes that we would like to make, that if a person would like to make in the MOA and AOA of a Section 8 company, it can be done only with the approval of the central government. So normally for a private limited company, if they want to make any changes in the MOA or AOA, they go to the shareholders and get the shareholders approval. However, when it is a Section 8 company, they have to get the central government approval. Okay, it is the power of the central government, which is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, to issue or cancel the license of Section 8. Okay. Earlier we used to apply for this license separately, but now along with Spice Plus it is coming. But the Ministry of Corporate Affairs is only issuing this license. And if they feel that this particular Section 8 company is not doing good for the public, they're just using this name and doing some other activity, or they are doing some activity for profit. In all these cases, Section 8 company license can be cancelled by the central government. So on closure of a Section 8 company, and after the closure of Section 8 company, normally after a company gets closed, what will happen? The remaining money goes to the equity shareholders of the company. However, in a Section 8 company, it doesn't go to the equity shareholders of the company. On closure of a Section 8 company, the assets of the company should be transferred to another Section 8 company with similar business, or it should be sold and the money should be deposited in the insolvency and bankruptcy fund, which is formed under IBC. Okay, so which means that even though the Section 8 company gets closed, the funds cannot be taken outside. It has to be either transferred to another Section 8 company, or the assets have to be sold and the remaining funds have to be transferred to the insolvency and bankruptcy fund, which is formed by IBC 2016 under section 224. Okay, suppose if I do anything wrong in the Section 8 company, I am doing some activity which is against the moral principles of a Section 8 company, the company will be liable to pay a penalty of rupees 10 lakhs to 1 crore and on every officer who's in default, with imprisonment up to 3 years, with a fine which is not less than 25,000, which may extend up to 25 lakhs. So this is what is the basic characteristics of a Section 8 company. And Section 8 company also enjoys a various level of exemptions under the Companies Act. So what are all the exemptions that are available to a Section 8 company? These can be a little informative also, which we have not known earlier. Okay, company secretary appointment is not mandatory for a Section 8 company. We've been thinking, okay, any company, more than 5 crores of paid up capital, company secretary appointment is mandatory. However, for a Section 8 company, appointment of a company secretary is not mandatory, and they need not have any minimum share capital. For normally, if I'm going to call for a meeting, I have to issue 21 clear days notice. However, when it comes to a Section 8 company, it is only 14 days, and no necessary records like minutes book maintenance and all these register maintenance is not mandatory. So a Section 8 company need not maintain board minutes or shareholder meeting minutes. Maintenance of minutes is not mandatory for a Section 8 company. And since it is 21 clear days, even the financials which have to be circulated from 21 days, it has been cut short to 14 days. Independent director is not applicable to a Section 8 company. So all the clauses whichever are related to independent directors does not apply to a Section 8 company. And we've also seen that the first board meeting of every company should be conducted within 30 days from the date of incorporation, and at least 4 board meetings have to be conducted every year. This condition is also taken away for a Section 8 company, and for every half year, if they can conduct 1 board meeting, that is sufficient enough. Okay, and the right of person other than the retiring director shall stand for director. So they normally say, which is basically applicable for a public limited company where you would have seen about rotation of directors and all these things, which is not applicable to a Section 8 company. And we also saw a particular director can be a director in maximum 20 companies. When we take a count of these 20 companies, Section 8 companies are excluded. So the maximum count of 20 companies, Section 8 companies need not be considered. The nomination and remuneration committee is not required to be formed. Okay, so decisions pertaining to borrowing, investment, grant of loans, advances can be approved by way of as a circular resolution. So under Companies Act, there are specified transactions which has to be transacted only in a properly board convened meeting. You have to come personally, sit, and you have to talk face to face, and you have to decide on certain facts. In order to, because those transactions are considered as very important, very sensitive. What kind of transactions are they? Like borrowing, taking borrowings, making investments, granting loans. All these are very important. So Companies Act is mandating directors to come in person and then discuss on it. However, a Section 8 company, it is not mandatory to do it in a board meeting. They can just do it in a circular resolution. They can just send the resolution, circulate the resolution, get the approvals. disclosure of interest in related party transaction in some cases only, which means that when the transaction value exceeds 1 lakh rupees, only then related party transactions have to be disclosed. If the transaction value is less than 1 lakh, related party transactions need not be disclosed. These are some features about Section 8 company. How to register a Section 8 company and all these things we've seen it already. So we'll not be seeing this, how to register now. Now comes next is the trust. So what do you mean by a trust? Trust is normally governed under Indian Trust Act 1882. So there are different types of persons who are involved in a trust. For easy understanding, let's take a scenario where there is an old guy who's basically very rich, and he had only one son, and he got married to a girl, and they have a small kid also. So this person has become grandfather now. The son and daughter, when they were going out in the car, they met with an accident and they died. Now the kid is too small. uh, Now what is the grandfather basically doing here is, the grandfather health conditions are also very bad, so there he is forming a trust here. So, and he's appointing some person as a to take in charge of the trust, who's called as the trustee, and he's saying that until my grandson becomes a major, you take care of my property. Okay, because he's got thousands of crores of property. So until my grandson becomes a major, you take care of the property. The day he becomes a major, you have to transfer the entire property to him. So this is what is called as a trust. So what is the purpose of a trust? It is to hold some property, basically. It is to hold some property for the benefit of someone. Okay, so here there are certain terms that you have to remember, like someone called as a settler, someone who called as a trustee, a person who's called as a beneficiary. There's a trust property and all these things. So who's a settler? The grandfather is a settler. Who's a trustee? The person who's going to take care of the trust property is called as the trustee. What is the trust property? The thousands of crores of property is the trust property. And who's the beneficiary? The grandson is the beneficiary. And this kind of an arrangement is called as a private trust. Okay, where the end beneficiary is known and it is given to a particular group of people or to a particular person. It is called as a private trust. And when the end benefit, for example, in the car accident, the grandson also was there, and all three have died, and there is no one else. Then what is this person saying? I've done so much of sin during my lifetime, so I just now in my last time, even after I die, I want my people to be benefited. So you form a trust and you do something good for our city people, for our village people. Okay, so when it is going to benefit public at large, it is called as public trust. So how do you identify a private trust or a public trust? We will just see who's the end beneficiary. Based on that, we can see who is it is a private or a public trust. So who can create a trust? Every person who's competent to enter into a contract can create a trust on behalf of a minor. With the permission of the principal civil code of the original jurisdiction, a guardian can create a trust. Hindu undivided family, AOP, trust by a women, company, all these persons can form a trust. Who can be a trustee? Any person who is capable to hold a property, because he is only going to take care of the property, can be as a trustee. So what is a public trust, private trust? We've already seen. Why do we normally get registered under private trust, public trust? It can be a trust, it can be a Section 8 company, it can be a society. When we talk about NGOs, there are a lot of tax exemptions that are given because they are doing some activity which basically government is supposed to do, but since due to lack of manpower and any of such reasons, NGOs are doing these activities. So since they are doing these activities, in order to boost them to do something good for the society, a lot of tax exemptions are given. Okay, so whatever income comes to them is not taxable, and whatever income they pay, whatever income they get from an outsider as donations, the person who has given donation, even he need not get it. Even for the portion that he is giving as donation, for that portion he need not pay any tax, which is basically like 12A registration, 80G registration. What I would normally say is, what are these registration tax exemptions? Basically, just read it once. It's all theoretical in nature. Okay, so next comes is a society. Society is basically again formed for charitable purpose, and these can be formed for multiple reasons, like for military orphans established at several presidencies of India. Society established for the promotion of science, literature, uh, fine arts, for diffusing political education, to say what is a parliament, what is a state legislation, what is the power of an MP, what is the power of an MP. We educate people on the this is called as political education. For that also trust societies will be formed. Public museums, galleries. If you go to a few museums and galleries, or a few colleges, all these things will normally be in the form of a society. Okay, so for all these purposes, societies are formed. What is the advantages of forming a society? It is more simple compared to a Section 8 company. It is more simple. The bookkeeping requirements are minimum in compliance compared to a Section 8 company. The cost of compliance is also very less regulated. Tax exemptions. So all these things are a lot of things are a lot of advantages are there when it comes to societies. Okay, the most regulated is the companies. Uh, Even here, mandatorily, it has to be audited once in a year. So all these things are there. Section 8 company, I've already seen, we've already explained, so I'm not explaining it. So when it comes to how to register a trust, how to register a society, with this, I think this chapter gets over. We'll just quickly see how to register a trust and how to register a society. So a trust can be created only by a person who is competent to enter into. So we already saw who can be a settler, who is competent to enter into a contract, which means that he should be above 18 years and he should be mentally sound. So the basic document here is the trust deed. The names are the name of the author, which is the settler, the name of the trustee, the name of the beneficiary, the name by which the trust is to be known to be called, the place where its principal or the office shall be situated, the property on which the trust property details. Okay, uh, the intention of the property. With that property, what are we going to do? So all these things have to be done, and it has to be taken on a stamp paper, and you will have to go to your local sub-registered office, and along with all the trustees who are going to be who are going to act as trustees, and they have to sign. A simple process. Similarly, you will have for registration of societies, there are society registrar offices. Again, these offices also will be present in the sub-registered office only. Both trust and society, both are offline process, where Section 8 company is an online process. Here to start a society, minimum 7 members are required. Registration can be done either at the state level or at the district level. Memorandum of Association and bylaws. Instead of AOA, here we call as bylaws. We call MOA and bylaws for societies. Consent letters from all the members to act as the managing committee. So here we call as managing committee. We don't call as board of directors, we call as managing committee. Okay. So authority letter duly signed by all the members of the managing committee, an affidavit. So all these documents have to be taken and given to the registrar. The registrar will see it, and if satisfied, he will register the society and he will give it to you. After that also, every year you're supposed to uh, keep filing your returns in order to keep your society live. If you don't file your return for a continuous period of 2 years, even your society will be wound up. Okay. And 1 second. The next chapter that we are going to see now is the financial service organization and registration process. But before that, just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. Here for societies, normally what they do is minimum 7 members, they will come together. They will decide that they will form the society, and that minutes copy should be taken to the registrar saying that we 7 members have decided to form the society. So for companies, my voice is low. Companies normally after registration they conduct shareholders meeting, but societies they conduct members meeting, and that resolution copy they will take it and go. Don't get confused with this IPO 10909 minutes and all. It is just minutes, members minutes. Go with that only. I am fine. Okay, let's continue the. Let's continue the class. Okay. So financial service organization and registration, it is the financial sector service is very important when it comes to the Indian economy. Uh, when we talk about financial sector, we normally uh, refer to banks or big financial institutions, but it does not include only commercial banks. It also includes insurance companies, NBFC companies, cooperative societies, pension funds, mutual funds. Even though they are smaller entities, these are also forming part of financial service organizations only. But yes, predominantly 64% of the total assets in the financial system are held by banks and big financial institutions. And over a period of years, certain other type of financial sectors are also getting its own importance. These kind of companies are basically NBFC company, non-banking financial company, housing finance company, asset restructuring company, microfinance companies, MFIs, Nidhi companies. These are also slowly they started to evolve, and their importance is also being taken. So now let's see one by one about each these type of companies. So NBFC companies. So NBFC company is defined here, and that what is that 50-50 test and all these things. Sometime back I was telling you. So all these things we will be seeing it here. So a non-banking financial company is a company that is registered under the Companies Act, and then which applies to RBI for a specified license. And what kind of activity they can do? They can engage in activity where they can give loans and advances. They can acquire shares, stocks, bonds, all type of securities that are issued by government or local authorities. They can do they can be in the activities like lease purchase, leasing, hire purchase, insurance business, chit business. Okay, so what does a NBFC company do? They accept loans, they give deposits, they can invest in securities, they can do hire purchase, they can do lease financing, they can get into insurance companies, they can be a chit business. These all type of activities a NBFC company can do, and an NBFC company can specifically is not allowed to do certain type of activities like agricultural activity, industrial activity, trading activity, or providing any services. Okay, and sales and purchase of construction and immovable assets. So it should not do agricultural activity, trading activity, service providing, dealing with immovable assets. All these things they are not supposed to do. So they can do only loan, advances, investing in securities, lease financing, hire purchase, insurance financing, chit business. So this is what is the definition given basically for a Nidhi company. So they are saying what a Nidhi company can do, and Nidhi companies are defined based on their work, what they can do. Okay, and if I want to get registered as a Nidhi company, I have to satisfy something called as a 50-50 test. Okay, financial activity as principal business is when a company's financial assets constitute more than 50% of the total assets, and the income which is coming from the financial assets contribute 50% of the gross income. Where what they are saying in this 50-50 test is the entire assets of my company, 50% of minimum 50% of the assets should be financial assets, and at least 50% of the income that I get from this business should come from the financial assets. So my 50% of the assets should be financial assets, and 50% of the gross income should come from the financial assets. This is 50-50 test. If this 50-50 test is satisfied only, I can at least go for a NBFC registration. And we saw what is the difference between a bank and an NBFC some time back, so I'm not repeating this. And registration, it is mandatory to get registered under section 45IA of RBI Act 1934 if I want to start as a NBFC company. Okay. However, this registration under section 45IA of RBI is exempt for certain type of companies, which are as follows. Because these type of companies are getting approval from some other sectorial regulator. It can be a venture capital fund, merchant banking companies, stock broking companies, insurance companies, nidhi companies, chit companies, housing finance companies, stock exchange company, where the regulator will be either SEBI, or it will either be IRDA, or either it will be the state government authorities, or it will be the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Since it is regulated by someone else, these type of companies are not mandatory to get registration under section 45IA of RBI Act. All other type of NBFC companies should get license under section 45IA of RBI Act 1934 before they do NBFC activity. NBFC, and there are something called as systematically important NBFCs. There is nothing called as unsystematically important NBFC. There's only systematically important NBFCs. What does the systematically important NBFC means? Whose total asset size is more than 500 crores in the last audited financial statement. In that case, since they have more than 500 crores, these type of NBFCs are basically called as systematically important NBFC companies. Okay, because they play a major role in the economy. So NBFCs can be broadly classified into many types. The types of NBFC can be deposit accepting NBFC, non-deposit accepting NBFC, and activity-based NBFC. So deposit accepting NBFC will normally be only a public limited company. Non-deposit accepting NBFC company can be either a private limited company or a public limited company. And this non-deposit accepting NBFC is further classified into two types, which is systematically important non-depositing accepting companies and other non-deposit accepting companies, which means that if my asset size is more than 500 crores, I will be called a systematically important non-deposit accepting NBFC and other non-deposit accepting NBFCs. This is what basically is a broad classification for NBFC companies. And they are saying this based on the activity. Now we will see based on the activity. Based on the activity, one second. Okay. So based on the activity that I'm going to do, I would be broadly classified into the following type of companies. Okay. So, okay guys, just give me 2 minutes. Just give me 2 minutes. I will try to share the notes with you. Okay. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm just pausing.
I kept the notes in the link. I think if you can click on the link, just confirm whether you're able to view the notes alone once. What is happening? One second, one second, one second. You're not able to see? Okay, okay, okay. Wait, 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 1 second. Now you'll get it. Okay, got it? Just click and confirm once, no? Just check, just click on the link and confirm whether you're able to open it or not, whether you're able to see the. Good. Super. Great. You should have done this in the first class itself. Okay. Never the late. Very good. So we'll continue now. 440. We'll just see 2-3 types of NBFCs and we will end for today. Okay.
So let me share my screen. Okay, so based on the type of activities that these NBFC companies are going to be performed, the NBFCs are basically classified into different types. So there are, say, 1 to 10 different types of NBFCs based on the nature of activity that they're going to do. So what are these 10 different types of NBFCs? Starting with asset financing companies. So an asset financing companies are basically companies which is a financial institution whose principal business is financing of physical assets. So when we talk about physical assets, these are basically big assets like automobiles, tractors, lathe machines, generator sets, earth moving machines. So whenever this particular NBFC finances physical assets such as big assets, in that case, these type of NBFCs are called as asset financing companies. So asset financing companies' principal business is to financing of physical assets, which are basically these type of assets. Okay, so the principal business for this purpose is defined as the aggregate of financing the real or physical assets. And here what they're saying is it's not 50-50 test, they should have 60-60 test. Only then this particular company will be classified as asset financing companies. Going to the next one is investment companies. Here the main business of these investment company is to invest in the securities of some other company. Okay, so the main purpose itself is to invest in the securities of some other company. So these are all investment companies. Then comes the loan company. So these particular loan companies also give loans, but they give to all loans except those loans which are basically given to asset financing companies. So asset financing companies basically give loans specifically for big assets. Loan companies are companies which give all type of loans, but however does not cover those type of companies which are specifically for asset financing companies. Then comes the infrastructure companies. So non-banking financial company, they are saying they are giving four conditions here, which deploys at least 75% of the total asset on infrastructure loans. These companies give loan only for infrastructure companies, and 75% of the loans that they give should be only for these infrastructure based companies. They should have minimum net owned funds. We saw in the definition of net owned funds in Nidhi company itself: paid up capital plus free reserve minus accumulated losses. So the net owned fund should be minimum 300 crores. They should have a credit rating of A or its equivalent, and the capital to risk ratio should be 15%. In this condition, a company will be treated as an infrastructure finance company. All are NBFC companies, but based on the nature, they are classified in these names. Then comes systematically important core investment companies. So what do you mean by systematically investment? What is an investment company which invests in the security of any other company? It's called as a systematically important, which is called as an investment company. However, when we call systematically important core investment company, is an NBFC carrying on business of acquisition of shares of security which satisfy the following conditions. For them, they are giving certain conditions. It holds not less than 90% of the total assets in the form of investment in equity shares, preference shares, debt, or loan. So 90% of the total assets should be in the form of investments. Okay, so 90% of the assets should be investment assets. Its investments in the equity shares. Wait for the investments in the equity share, including instruments which are compulsorily convertible. So whenever, even in RBI, when we are reporting, when it is a compulsorily convertible debenture, whenever it is a compulsorily convertible preference share, even though, or FCCBs, all these convertible instruments are also treated as equity only, because anyways they are going to get converted. So here what they're saying is investment in equity, including convertible equity, should constitute not less than 60% of its total assets. Okay, so 90% of the investment should be in equity, preference, bonds, everything. Out of that 60% should be purely in equity. It does not trade with the investments in shares. Okay, it does not trade with the securities that they've invested, but however they can do block sales, which means that they're at once bulk sales for the purpose of divestment, disinvestment. They can sell the securities. However, they should not trade with the securities. Okay, it does not trade with the investment. It does not carry on any other financial activity. It does only investment. They don't do any other activity. Its asset size is 100 crores or above, and it accepts public funds. If it does all these activity, it will be called as a systematically core investment company. Okay, then comes the infrastructure debt fund. So these are basically formed for infrastructure based company, but these are funds which are formed for debt funds which are formed. For example, companies registered as NBFC to facilitate the flow of long term debt into infrastructure projects. Okay, so these NBFCs are through issue of rupee or dollar denoted bonds for a minimum period of 5 years of maturity. Only infrastructure finance companies can sponsor for these funds. So what these are particular type of NBFC company which will hold this fund, and who will give contribution to this fund? Infrastructure finance companies will give loans to, will give contribution to these funds. What does this fund do? They will issue bonds in return to the infrastructure finance companies, and these funds are basically used in order to to support these long-term infrastructure projects. Okay, so the purpose of this particular NBFC is only to hold the funds that are given by infrastructure finance companies. So that is infrastructure debt funds. And non-banking financial companies, which is an MFI, these are normally seen in rural areas to give small loans to people who are located in that rural area. So NBFC MFI is a non-deposit accepting NBFC with not less than 85% of the assets in the nature of the qualifying assets. So 85% of the assets should be in any one of these qualifying assets. So what is the criteria to be a MFI? MFI NBFC is the loan disbursed during a particular year to a borrower in a rural household should not exceed 1 lakh, and in a semi-urban household, one person can get a maximum loan of 1,60,000. So in case of MFI companies, I can give a loan to a person if he's in a rural area. A maximum loan that I can give him is only 1 lakh, and if he's residing in a semi-urban area, the maximum loan that I can give a household is not exceeding 1,60,000 rupees, and the loan amount does not exceed 50,000 in the first cycle and 1 lakh in the subsequent cycle. That too, that 1 lakh I should not give it in the first instance itself. First I should give only 50% of it. If he's repaying me properly, the next cycle I can give him up to 1 lakh. Okay, the total indebtedness of the borrower should not exceed 1 lakh, which means that I give him 1 lakh, and before he repays that 1 lakh, I should not give him extra money. All the time, the maximum indebtedness, the maximum payable that he has to do should not exceed 1 lakh. The tenure of the loan should not be less than 24 months. So minimum 24 months should be given for a loan amount in excess of rupees 50,000 without repayment of penalty. Okay, because this, in order to benefit the small borrowers, they've given all these conditions. The aggregate amount of loan on income. So here again, the 50-50 test has to be satisfied. Loan repayment can be either weekly or fortnight or monthly on the choice of the borrower. We'll have to ask the borrower, what are you opting for? And if he's opting weekly, then weekly we have to collect. These are basically NBFC MFI companies. Then comes the last three type, which is factoring companies. You would have seen what is factoring companies. Factoring companies normally function to bail out a non-performing asset. Okay, there will be banks, there will be banking companies which would have given loans, and the loans would not have been paid back by the borrower. So what these factoring companies will basically do is, they will give the bank the loan amount that borrower is supposed to take, and this non-banking financial company will try to take the money from them. Okay, but for example, if he's supposed to pay him 10 crores, what the factoring company will do, they will pay the bank 8 crores. The 2 crores is a bad debt, but then for the banker, he's at least getting 8 crores, and he will continue his business. What this non-banking financial company will do, he will try to collect the entire 10 crores from them. That 2 crores is his profit. So the level of risk that they take. Okay, so is a factoring company. Factoring company is a non-deposit accepting NBFC. Principal business is to do factoring. Even here, 50-50 test has to be passed. Then mortgage guarantee company. So mortgage guarantee companies are financial institutions for which at least 90% of the business turnover is from mortgage guarantee business. So I am going to a bank for a loan, and bank is asking me for a security. I don't have security to give. I approach these NBFC companies. These NBFC companies will give me guarantee against the loan. So these are mortgage guarantee NBFC companies. The last one is non-operative financial holding companies, which is basically they don't do any other activity. These will act as holding company to some banks. If I want to start a bank, I will form these NBFC companies, and using these NBFC company as a shareholder to the banking company, a holding company to the banking to the main banking company, I get it registered. So the sole purpose of registering this NBFC non-operative financial holding company is to incorporate another banking company and to have this particular NBFC company as a holding company. So these are basically the 10 different types of NBFCs that can be registered. NBFC companies are basically preferred for loan rather going to a banker due to various reasons, because NBFC companies give a good competitive interest rate. They give quick processing, because when you go to a bank, they see many conditions and they'll say, no, you are not eligible for loan. However, when we go to NBFC companies, it is quick processing, less rules are there. Loans are available to individual with poor credit rating. Even though the credit rating is less, I will still get loans. So all these things are some of the advantages of registering a NBFC company, and how to register an NBFC company and all these things, we'll see it in the next class. Okay, so discuss a little more how to register and all. Let's see it in the next class.
I was thinking if I'm going to wear this mic, voice will be little loud, but okay, voice was not clear. Then I think I should not wear the mic from next class. UPI related, I'm not very sure because they are recent ones. I didn't study about it. I will try to just Google and find out. I'm not very sure on UPI. Sriram Swarnam. Okay, okay. I'll not use mic then next time. The link for the notes again, I've just shared it one more time. Okay. So yeah, thank you all. Let's end for affidavit is basically like, what is an affidavit? Affidavit is basically like a declaration. Uh, say I am declaring something on an A4 sheet saying that I am a good boy. Okay. But when I give it on a stamp paper, it has a legal impact on it, which is more authentic way of declaring something. So that is an affidavit, which has a legal binding on it. That is basically an affidavit is. Okay, thank you. I'm closing the session. Yeah. Bye. End meeting for all. Yeah. Bye.